I've never really gelled with Drift's white and red color scheme. The white always consumed the geometry of the car in both modes and drowned out any interesting vehicular detail. All the while, the red failed to justify itself as a secondary color, unable to illuminate any enticing elements or accentuate the suffocating sea of pearlescent tones. The Age of Extinction take, while coming with the inherent flaws of the film's later design ideologies, has a personally appealing palette, decorating itself in lavish blues and stimulating golds in order to bring out dimension and depth that allows rather generic and frankly unpleasant features of the movie model to shine on screen next to a cinematic companion.
Can't get a boner.
Despite the fact that having a samurai Japanese transformer with a gold face is not arguably but objectively incredibly racist. This particular release of the MMC mold I want to say is a convention exclusive from Toronto? And despite the exorbitant price tag I paid for it, I was drawn to this release specifically for the Age of Extinction colors on the IDW base design, of which I liked. So let's see how this turns out. In Drift's Cybertronian car mode, he is a very like the 1986 styled vehicles, focusing their appeal around a particular shape or contour rather than matching any exact car in real life. Able to be fully constructed of elements of the robot that have been moved or shifted enough to obscure their role in the aforementioned persona. Evidence of the bipedal remaining scarce, with only a visible ball joint being a noticeable sign of any foul play beneath his tantalizingly road-safe jet turbines. The vehicle blends differing shades, shapes, and finishes of its deep-sea blues to create a tantalizing effect, which is potentially mitigated or exaggerated by my camera. My desk is incredibly fucking dusty. The separate Pantones seem to almost align with one another at some angles in hand and then show their unique values as the light passes them over. It creates a mesmerizing effect. The Cybertronian sports car features some weapon storage for all of Drift's swords. While efficient, I'm not a fan of the need to disassemble one of the blades for this feature. I've never been much a stickler, but it almost feels like cheating when you have your weapon storage require disassembly with no Watsonian diabetic rationale. The cockpit may open to an astonishing fucking nothing. Despite the catfished interior, I appreciate the ability to open this section at all. And you know, I'm gonna say, it's not crazy for a Cybertronian car to have a cockpit or an interior. How do you think Micromasters get around? Or Target Masters? Where's a potential headmaster going to sit? Cut those fuckers a break. Any functioning society would accommodate itself to the needs of the people it wasn't initially designed for. Sadly, however, the wheels don't tend to roll with great ease. It's not immobile by any means, but it's also not as smooth as I tend to like my partners. Perhaps a result of the need to transform. My partners, not the car. The vehicle holds itself together firmly without the need of its components being held in place by the robot mode joints, primarily through an abundance of locking tabs found throughout the transformation. I must admit, I've never been on the MMC hype train. I've historically been more enticed by the work of Make Toys and Fans Project. I was never unable to appreciate, admire, or enjoy their output, but I've never been caught up in the glaze and cum like many of my peers have been. Drift, however, has been able to show me a bit of what people have gotten so stirred up in, and why MMC garners such incessant praise. The conversion is a series of swift, elegant hinges and involved swivels able to efficiently shift geometry to an uncompromised humanoid robotic form. There's no section in which the momentum comes to a halt to work out a surprisingly annoying specific angle, or needlessly precise positions. It all just flows out smoothly onto my monitor. It's a process of which I can only truly and succinctly describe to you as pretty freaking tight, dog. And in robot mode, Drift has permitted himself to become a robust, impassioned marriage of only the best elements of his historic looks, allowing the distinct and focused appeal of his most distinguished IDW incarnation while flourishing it with the dynamic and involved palette of his Age of Consent counterpart. The golden face it's still a bit racist, but, you know, it feels a little less it's integrated into the design. That's gotta count for something, right? The way you know in which it's truly a great Transformers design is because his most apparent point of visual appeal is also his biggest practical hurdle. Drift's shoulders are huge, and I know his wheels are supposed to fold in, I just insist on appreciating the kibble. They remain remarkably unproblematic for his movement. This boy can air out his pits like an overwhelmed center of a Midwestern metal band's sex-positive mosh pit with surprisingly little detriment to the figure's overall visual coherence and appeal. No matter how the shoulders twist or turn or threaten to pop his cranium, the design feels cohesive and dynamic. Although, as you work the ball joint, don't be surprised if they pop out every now and then. It's not a sweat, it just can be a little bit bothersome when it happens. His sword sheaths allow sway across and around his hips on an impressive transformation swivel and ball joint to enable further dynamism in his posing. Dynamism truly is the pint of milk for the city block, because it's hard to get this guy looking dead and lifeless. Even as his swords are plunged into his biologically integrated receptacles, their golden handles help push the palette even further. And said color scheme continues to be kind of fucking awesome. Along with carried over detail from the car mode, silver becomes a much more prominent design element. While it was in use in the vehicle, in the robot it becomes much more pronounced. It rivals gold for his primary complementary color. A new shade of cyan has also been brought into the fray, allowing itself to distinguish the bicep and thighs wonderfully. It's a simple layout, but effective when introduced underneath the existing visual dynamics. Let it be known as well that most of these design concepts are original to this release, as the original Age of Contraceptives does not reach this level of intricate exploration of its own deco. The base sculpt works very well to present itself with a sense of confidence with its shape. This isn't a toy concerned in pissing its tutu over if it's populating its space well enough. There's a succinct and satisfying level of mechanical detail giving way to a deco to take advantage of. I'm particularly fetishistic about the venting detail across the figure. Largely a holdover from its inspiration, its inclusion is rendered excellently and even knows where to draw it back in some areas. According to some visual references I can find, the sculpt is actually missing some particular areas of ventilation from the original artwork. And you know what? That's pretty gnarly, because what has taken their place is a much more worthy use of space. Because the motif of these little fucking circle dots get used to delightful effect, not becoming tethered to one specific Pantone. His calves, after having been almost entirely reshaped by that transformation, demonstrate a depraved liking to changing sculpted elevations, continuing the IDW tradition of building larger forms from smaller, focused amounts of geometry. And as a result of the conversion, the components of his creamy calves may also shift and mold themselves to his articulated movement. Drift here, as a matter of fact, is sporting some exemplary joints. Not much in terms of crazy specialty systems, but a large range on the standard ones. Expressive and satisfactory movement at the head, maybe a little more would have been appreciated. I picture Drift in a lot of crouching poses, and not being able to look up and in front of him would definitely be an issue in sword duels. Aforementioned massively unimpeded shoulder movements, adjustable to even customize the look of the fella. I personally go straight yonkers for this angling of his shoulders up towards the back, accentuating all of the detail atop and to the sides of his humongous humeruses. As much curl as you'll ever reasonably need, the hands are on a ball joint allowing for some swivel and some minor wobbling action, not enough to be a proper katana wielding wrist, but appreciated motion. Legs may lag as much as you'd like them with some dynamic gripper action. Another entry in this figure's ever-expanding repertoire of adjustable accessories, due to a transformation joint, you may fiddle with this knee pad if you're into that kind of thing. This can come in handy as you bend the legs, being able to move the exact angle his knee spires jet off at. It is not difficult in any sense of the word to pose Drift. His lively sculpt works powerfully with his color scheme atop his limber and supple ranges of motion to ensure his presence in any collection. I suppose the only thing I could ask for is a more extensive and expressive butterfly joint. His ball joints may allow for some tilt forward and back, but not enough to rest both hands together on a sword, nor reach further around his own chest, which I imagine would be helpful given the character's aptitude for sword fighting. For a quick scale run, here he is next to Optimus Prime, and Optimus Prime. In robot mode, Drift stands tall next to Masterpiece Carbots. I've always enjoyed how Decepticons tend to be physically larger than the average Autobot, so as a defective con, it's cool to have him being a little bit taller than his peers. MMC doesn't constantly go for any one scale explicitly, but I do think this mold fits really well into an MP display. He's obviously not completely stylistically in line with them as an IDW figure, but he's not standing out too terribly, especially if you think of him as being alongside the 86 and Beyond cast. I don't own any 86 and Beyond MPs. I do find him to be a little bit large and domineering next to some Generations figures. Like, dude, can you back the fuck up? Ultimately, MMC's Drift is a masterpiece without need of proclamation. Between excellent engineering, superb robot and vehicle modes, and an endless amount of posable fun, I struggle to think of a better figure to radicalize and brainwash my feeble mind with. And I can confirm, after enjoying this toy, my interest in MMC has peaked, having since purchased their Mirage and K-On! It's such a fantastic toy, a fantastic Drift, a fantastic addition to my Masterpiece collection. It absolutely has my recommendation. For whatever that's worth to you, you fucking crap.